Hello and welcome back to our channel. I'm Zoe and today we're going to be talking about sports, specifically women's sports, and even more specifically, Caitlin Clark. So if you've been living under a rock for really the last, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but even more so, like the last year, then you may not know who Caitlin Clark is, though I have a hard time believing that. She was at this point, the star point guard of the Iowa women's basketball team. She truly captivated the world because of her incredible skill, the fact that she can make three-pointers from the logo, just everything that she does has done for not only women's sports, college sports, women in general, sports in general. She has genuinely captivated everyone, and it has paid off because the women's college basketball final, which took place on Sunday afternoon, drew more people than the men's college basketball final, which happened on Monday night. Here are the official numbers now that we have them in following the men's final on Monday. The women's final had 18.9 million viewers, which and it was aired on ABC and ESPN. And as I mentioned, it was Sunday afternoon, depending on where you were in the country. It was on at about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The men's final had 14.8 million. So the women got about 4 million more viewers. However, the men's final was only on TBS, TNT, and it was on Monday night. It had a bit of a late start, about 8:20 Central, 9:20 Eastern time. Now, just right off the gate, right out of the gate, these numbers are absolutely incredible. Not only is this the first time ever that a women's college basketball final has more of an audience than the men's final, but this number, 18.9 million, is almost double the final from last year, which also had Iowa in the final against LSU and had Caitlin Clark. So, and she was a big deal even then. But to see how much of a big deal she's become in the last year, that number doubled. And we have to give credit, obviously, to South Carolina, who won the game, went undefeated, an absolutely incredible team led by Dawn Staley. They deserve all the flowers, all the recognition, all the credit, because what they have been able to achieve, not just this year, but in the last few years, is unparalleled, especially at a time in college basketball where the competition is so much higher, the level is so much better. Great players are playing on a number of different teams. What they've been able to achieve is amazing. But it is crazy that the women's final got 18 million people to tune in. Now, it has been a bit funny seeing all the men, and I shouldn't say all the men, but certain men making excuses or getting in the comments section trying to explain why the men's final has less viewers or had less viewers than the women, saying, well, it was only on TBS and TNT and it was on late at night and this, that, the other. Here's the thing. I don't know that the 3 p.m., 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon time slot benefited Iowa, South Carolina. Like, in some ways you could say it did, but people are out and about typically on a Sunday afternoon. They're not usually home, whereas most people are home in front of their TVs around 8 or 9 p.m. on a Monday night. So I don't know that the excuse that, the women were on a Sunday afternoon, I don't know that holds much weight. And for context purposes too, because a lot of people have said, well, it was on ABC. The women's game was on ABC. And that is true. I think the numbers were definitely helped because of the fact that it was on ABC. But the men, as I mentioned, got 14.8 million. The semifinal game and the women's side between Iowa and UConn, which took place on Friday night, only on ESPN, got 14.2 million. So they were right there, only being on ESPN. And it was on a Friday night. How many people are home at 9 p.m. on a Friday night? Not many people. So I think it's safe to say that the women's tournament this year absolutely dominated the men's, not just from I think obviously the storylines played a huge part in it, not just Caitlin Clark, but the fact that South Carolina had the potential to be undefeated. You had LSU and Angel Reese and everything going on with them. You had Juju Watkins and everything that she was doing over at USC. I mean, there were so many interesting storylines. Paige Beckers with UConn. Incredible personalities, incredible people to watch. I think that the quality of play in the women's game is so high, and it's so fun to watch, and it's so exciting. And to be honest, the men's storylines, there just wasn't really anything there. There wasn't a lot. I guess you could say North Carolina State on the men's side was definitely like, they were the Cinderella team. They were the team that America was rooting for, but it just didn't quite compare. And I think if you were a casual basketball fan, there was more to be interested in the women's game than there was in the men's game. And that just, I think that showed in the ratings. But speaking of Caitlin Clark, who again, as I mentioned, has just like transcended the sport, has become a genuine icon. I think she is about to elevate to a new stratosphere in terms of fame and recognition. Obviously, the college game has changed so much in the last handful of years, and now college athletes can make money. So we've already seen her in a Gatorade commercial, a State Farm commercial. Like she's already in our lives in the way that a professional athlete would be. But it's only going to get more and more intense for her. And she's only going to become more and more of a star, I think, as she then enters the WNBA and continues on her basketball career. Now, it's a short, quick turnaround for her because the WNBA draft is on Monday, April 15th. So literally just days away, Caitlin Clark will be figuring out which NBA team or WNBA team she'll be going to. She's certainly going to be picked with the number 1 overall pick, which the Indiana Fever have the number 1 overall pick. So Caitlin Clark will be heading to Indiana, which I think makes sense in a lot of ways. I'm sure there are people in the WNBA that wish that she was going to a bigger market team, a New York, an LA, something like that. But Caitlin herself, she's from Iowa, born and raised in the Midwest, went to Iowa. And so the fact that she's staying in the Midwest and will be with Indiana, I think it kind of fits her brand. I think it just kind of makes sense for her and who she is. And I'll be really, really curious to see what happens in terms of viewership with the WNBA. Does the interest cross over into her professional career? Will people be tuning in for her games? Will people be going to her games? I could definitely see a lot more people attending games, especially because now she'll be traveling to these different cities across the country. And so if she's somewhere close to you, I think there's a lot of people who say, yeah, I'll go watch Caitlin Clark play. I'll go check out this game. And I'll be curious to see how that continues on over the course of her time in the WNBA. Another part of the whole WNBA story is the fact that there's been a lot of kerfuffle the last couple of weeks because some current WNBA players haven't been the most welcoming to Caitlin Clark, to say the least, or have maybe had a little bit of pushback in terms of what they think she's going to be able to do in the WNBA, whether or not she's one of the greatest players of all time. And listen, I understand players like a Diana Taurasi or a Breanna Stewart, true icons of the game who've had amazing success, feeling a little bit like, hey, we've been doing our thing and performing at a high level for a really, really long time. And yes, now all of a sudden people are paying attention and people care, but let's not pretend that this is only now just starting, right? I can understand them feeling a little bit protective of their sport and their league, and also saying like, listen, she's a good player, but it's not like it's not like it's going to be a cakewalk for her to come in and she's just going to dominate. Like, we've got great players on every single team, and she's going to struggle. I can understand that perspective, and I totally get it. I think where I have pushback is the idea that she can't be considered one of the greatest players of all time because she hasn't won a title. I think the whole GOAT conversation in general is always silly because ultimately everyone's going to have a different opinion. Maybe there's a handful of different athletes where the consensus, everyone can come to a consensus that this person is the greatest of all time. But for the most part, whether you're talking about Michael Jordan and LeBron James, or even now in football with Tom and Patrick Mahomes, it's like everyone has their own opinion. Everyone's using different metrics. Everyone says, well, rings matter, rings don't matter. These stats matter, these stats don't matter. The point of the situation is what Caitlin Clark has been able to achieve in college is unprecedented. Most points scored ever, man, woman in college basketball. She holds so many records. She also went to an Iowa team that has never won a national title. In fact, prior to Caitlin Clark going to the team, they'd only been to one Final Four, as far as I know. Whereas other teams like a UConn or a Tennessee have unparalleled years of success, of championship runs, of undefeated seasons, of recruiting and getting the best players to come play for their team. So I don't think it's fair to say she needed a ring, especially because the Iowa team that she was playing with, her teammates, were all solid, good players. But let's not pretend or act like if they would have made the championship game if Caitlin was not a part of their team. I feel like if Caitlin wasn't a part of the Iowa team, that team maybe would have made the Sweet 16. They were not making it to the championship game if they didn't have Caitlin Clark. And so the fact that Caitlin's made it to back-to-back championship games, back-to-back Final Fours, she's won Big Ten titles. I mean, she has done so much. And at the end of the day, basketball is a team sport. And if you don't have the best team around you, it's going to be pretty challenging to win a championship. So I think she can be considered a GOAT of college basketball. We will see what she does the rest of her career. But there's no denying what she's been able to achieve in college basketball. And anyone that says otherwise is just being a big hater, in my opinion. Now, the other question is, how will she perform in the WNBA? And I think it is true that she will struggle. Like, I definitely think she's not going to dominate. She's not going to average 30-something points a game like she has in college. It's going to be a different level for her. The game is faster. The players are bigger and stronger. Caitlin's weakness is her defense. She's not the best defender, so she might have an issue there and have to really get up to speed with the defending part of it. But I will say she's a great passer, so she can facilitate her teammates. And also, as I've mentioned, she's been the star on the Iowa team. Every team that plays Iowa knows that if they can stop Caitlin Clark, if they can just hound her and put all their focus on Caitlin and force the other teammates around her to win the game for them, they're going to have a good chance at winning the game. Now in the WNBA, Caitlin's going to be playing with 4 other very good quality players. So the opposing teams are not going to be able to pay as much focus and attention to Caitlin because everybody else will beat them. So in a way, you could say, yeah, she's going to struggle, but in another way, I feel like she might actually succeed and do well because teams won't be able to put all eyes on Caitlin all the time because she's going to be playing with other great players. And I think her team will be able to draw up a lot of plays to get her open for threes and to get her to the basket. And like I said, not only a great shooter, an amazing, amazing passer with such great court vision. So yes, will it be more difficult than college for her? Certainly. But I do think that she's going to do well. I think she's going to succeed. And I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see her grow and perform. I'm excited to see the fan base grow and evolve over time. And I just think what we've seen with her has been so exciting. It's been so fun. It's been so captivating. I hope that this trend of supporting women's sports in general, women's college basketball continues because there are still fantastic players in college basketball that will be coming back next year. As I mentioned, Juju Watkins, Paige Beckers, like great players will be returning, which will be so fun to watch. So I hope that the intrigue and the interest does not stop here for Caitlin and for college basketball and just women's sports in general. Like, it's such an exciting time. It's such a great time. And I hope this continues. So that's that on our little sports recap, Caitlin Clark recap of the day. Please let me know in the comments if you have watched Caitlin Clark play, what you think of her playing, what you thought of the final this year. Do you think she's going to have success in WNBA? What do you think about everyone's chatter surrounding Caitlin in the GOAT conversation? Like, anything and everything, share it in the comments section, please. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.